friends, this is Karen from Blue Rooster Farm, and today we are going to be using some of these peppers. I am going to show you how to stuff peppers 3 different ways and preserve them in the freezer. So stick around. Thanks for sticking around. Well, as you see, I have a lot of red peppers here. A lot of them getting ripe outside in our garden right now. So last night, we've had really hot days lately, and I've tried to avoid going outside as much as I can, but you know, if you got a garden, you got to go outside. But I went out to get some okra because I hadn't checked on it for 2 days, and you know, if okra is allowed to go a couple of days, the okra get too big. So I went out, very, very hot. I had my basket, let's see, I think it's this one here. I had my basket, my scissors, and I was getting the okra, and I looked over at our peppers, and I saw an awful lot of red ones. And I thought, well, I better pick a few red ones before they start getting sunburned and before the birds start eating them. And so I started picking them. And it didn't take long before I realized that basket's not going to hold all the peppers that I've got. So I came back in and I got a laundry basket, and I filled that laundry basket full of these peppers. And these are just the ones that were getting ripe, or that might have had a little sun damage or something that I needed to get them off the vine. So today, that means I get to do something with these peppers. So I was thinking, what do I want to do with all of the peppers this year? And of course, I've already got a couple of recipes out using peppers. We've had peppers throughout the gardening season. And I know I'm going to eventually be cutting them and freezing them, because that's one of our favorite ways to use them, just having them chopped up or in strips to cook with throughout the winter and in the spring. So I decided that I'm going to be freezing some that are stuffed. And we've been eating some stuffed peppers lately, and I was thinking, what kind do I want to stuff? So I came up with 3 recipes that I wanted to use for stuffing my peppers. And so for just a small portion of these peppers, I'm going to be freezing them stuffed. And then the rest I will be chopping up and freezing. So I think the first one I'm going to start off with is my grandmother Borgmeyer's stuffed pepper recipe. Now this recipe is one that I grew up eating at my house, and I thought it was my mom's recipe. And last night I went to look up the recipe to see if I had it, and I didn't. So I was kind of going through some cookbooks, and I couldn't find anything like it. And finally I went into some older cookbooks, some vintage ones, like Farm Bureau from the 60s, a Fannie Farmer cookbook. And finally I found one that sounded like hers. And so I just talked to my mom just a bit ago and was asking her just to make sure I had the right ingredients. And she said that this was my grandmother Borgmeyer's recipe. So I did not realize that. So we're going to be making my mom's and my grandma Borgmeyer's stuffed peppers. So that's the first one we are going to be making. The second one we're going to be making is a Mexican stuffed pepper, and I'll be sharing that recipe with you. And the last one, we are going to be making stuffed, or actually bacon wrapped jalapeno poppers. And also for those of you that do not like the spicy hot taste of that much jalapeno, we're going to be making a faux jalapeno popper, and it will also be bacon wrapped. So if you're interested in seeing any of those recipes, continue watching this video. I am going to get ready for the first recipe, my mom and grandma's stuffed peppers, and I'm going to bring the ingredients back and share how I make those. So I will see you right here in just a second. All right, I think I've got everything prepared for our first stuffed peppers, and this is Grandma Borgmeyer's and my mom's stuffed peppers. And remember, this is an old recipe, so the measurements aren't exact. You know, they did with, you would just use what you had. My grandmother grew up on a farm. She lived on a farm her whole life, and you just used what you had, whatever was in the garden, whatever they had available. So we are going to make it the way my mother explained to me how she made it, and we'll see if mine tastes as good as hers. So the first thing I did was I browned up some burger and ground pork. Now, you can use all burger, you can use all ground pork, you could use lamb, you can use whatever meat you'd like, ground turkey. I think my mother always had ground beef and maybe some sausage or ground pork in there, but I believe it was usually just ground beef. And you want to cut up some chopped onions and put them in there as well. Now this, I think, is probably 2 pounds of lean ground beef and lean pork, ground pork. And then I believe I have about 2 regular sized onions chopped up and cooked with that meat. I've added salt and pepper so it tastes really good just the way it is. And so, you know, I can tell you what about the measurements are here. Let's see what sizes are. So it looks like it's about 5 cups in here. Again, if you have less meat, that's okay. You know, this is one of those things that you can make that will stretch your meat, because we're going to be putting bread, cubed bread in it. And if you don't have as much meat, you could just use more bread and more veggies. So we've got that in our pot or our bowl. And then we are going to take, I'm going to mix 2 eggs. Now, if you were just making a small batch, it would just be, or just a single meal, it would just be an egg. But I'm going to be making quite a few with this one. I'm not going to be making as many as I think I'm going to make later. I just wanted to make enough to be able to do a video with you. Since I'm doing 3 stuffed videos today, stuffed pepper videos, I thought it would be a little overwhelming for me to do 3 big batches. So we're going to do just kind of a medium freezer batch. So I cracked 2 eggs into my beef. And then I'm going to add some chopped up tomatoes, and these do have skins on. If you had no tomatoes available, you could use like crushed tomatoes out of a can, whatever. Or if you had, I think a lot of times they would use their whole canned tomatoes and just chop those up and put them in. And I am just putting a couple of handfuls in. Again, I'm going to look to see what it looks like when I get everything added. So we've got this so far. And then we're going to take some just bread cubes, and this is just some homemade bread that I've had in the refrigerator for several days. I just cubed it up about 1-inch pieces, and I think you'd want about a cup if you were using an egg. So I'm going to add a couple cups. And again, if you don't have as much meat or you want to stretch your dollar, you could add as much as you want. Just make it more of a meat stuffing, you know, like a stuffing with meat in it. That would be perfectly fine. You know, prices are going up on meat. You need to figure out ways of stretching that meat to feed your family. This would be a great recipe. Now, right now, it is pretty dry. So my bread cubes in there are not getting a lot of moisture. And my mom said you could add, you know, your juice from your tomatoes. So I'm going to add some of that. Maybe another handful of tomatoes. She said you could also use milk or water. I thought I would just take a little beef broth or beef bouillon and heat it up in some water, and that would make a good flavor. This one's still hot, so I'm adding, a half to a cup, maybe 3/4 of a cup. And that is getting my bread more saturated. Okay, and that looks pretty good. She said also pepper and salt. The recipe I found with Fanny Farmer, it said you could add some parsley or some basil. Any of that would be fine. I'm gonna keep to the recipe I'm gonna get a towel. I'm going to keep to the recipe that my mom would make because I thought it tasted just right. So I'm gonna add just a little pepper. I salted the meat, but of course the tomatoes were not salted, so I'll just add just a little bit more salt. You can always add more salt as you're eating. And then a big pinch of pepper. And I think I'm going to add a few more breadcrumbs because that's a lot of meat still in there. And then a little more tomatoes. You know, you just look at it and decide what you like. And I think we're gonna stop right there. As it's cooking, the juice from the peppers and the juices from the tomatoes will continue to come out. So right now, this is what it's looking like. It doesn't look too pretty, but it does taste really good. So I'm gonna take my peppers, and I debated on whether to cut them in half and fill them because I have such big, these are really big bell peppers. But I thought, well, I'll go ahead and just do them big. And so I just cut the tops off, made sure the insides were cleaned out. And my mother said that whenever you're stuffing them, don't push the stuffing down. You don't want to pack it in, just kind of lay it in there nicely. And so all I'm gonna do is I've got a piece of parchment on a sheet that's like a roasting pan. And I'm going to place them on here because I'm going to be freezing these. I'm gonna freeze them like this, and then after they're frozen, I am going to put them in plastic bags where the air's been taken out. I'll use my, whatever that thing is called, that takes out the air. I'll be doing that. And you could easily put them in Ziploc bags. All of that would be fine too. So just want to make sure you have it filled up but not pressed down. And that's looking really good. Now when you bake these, you're going to bake them at 350 degrees. Now if you're eating them right now, just turn your oven on, preheat it to 350 degrees and cook it for 30 to 40 minutes. If the inside is all nice and cooked, you know it's done. You know, there's really nothing except for the egg that is raw in here, and so just want to get that middle of the filling cooked completely. And I asked her if they ever put cheese on them because I thought cheese would be good on top, and you can take and sprinkle cheese at the end of the baking so it melts on there. These do not need a sauce to be put over them. If you wanted a sauce to pour over them, that would be fine. These don't need a sauce. So let me see. This is making a lot of these big ones, so that's good. We're making a dent in our peppers today. Now, when I cut the tops off of these peppers, I just went straight down. Of course, there's some pepper on those tops that are still good, so I can cut that off and just chunk it up. If you wanted to, you could have added that back into your filling. I didn't, just because I'm trying to just kind of keep them the way we grew up eating them. But these will be really good this winter when it's cold out, very hearty and healthy too. So I think I have enough for one more. Let's see, this one right here. But the onions, definitely get plenty of onions and cook those onions with your burger. That definitely gives a good flavor. Perfect. And let's see how many of these big bell peppers I was able to stuff. I was able to stuff 11. So this is making a batch of 11. And these will go in the freezer and I will freeze them. In fact, I think I need to keep 4 out because my husband just texted me a minute ago and I think our sons are gonna come through on their way up to Wisconsin to fish, and I think they'll probably be expecting to eat. So I'll be pulling out 4 of these and baking them for dinner tonight. So recipe number 1, Grandma Borgmeyer's stuffed peppers. These will be great. Next recipe are Mexican stuffed peppers. So I'll get everything cleaned up, chopped, and I'll bring you right back. Okay, I've got everything set up for our second stuffed pepper, and this one's a Mexican style stuffed pepper. And this one, I have chosen not to add rice. Now, if you want to add rice to this, by all means do it. The reason I'm not using rice is because since I'm freezing these, I have found that when I use rice in something that I am freezing and cooking, I never know whether it's going to become mush or be too firm, and it can just mess up the whole stuffed pepper. So what I like to do is I'm gonna leave the rice out since this one's going to be a frozen meal and it's going to be in the freezer, and then we're gonna take it out to bake it. I'm gonna leave the rice out, and if I wanna have a side of rice with it, then I'll do that. But just for me, I just feel like I either have it not cooked enough or cooked way too much, and it just depends on if I put it in the crock pot and cook it for 6 hours, you know, when they're frozen, or if I put it in the oven. It depends on how I'm cooking it, so I'm not gonna mess with rice. So do what you wanna do with rice, but I'm not gonna put that in here, okay? So what we're gonna start off with is I've got the beef and ground pork all prepared. It's all cooked, just breaking up some big pieces. I also chopped up about an onion or so in that and cooked it with an onion. This was about 2 pounds of lean beef and lean ground pork. So it had about 5 or 6 cups of meat. I'm not gonna have specific measurements for this stuff because it all depends on your taste. If you don't like something, leave it out. If you really like it, you can add more, but it's just according to your taste. It's kind of like making a taco. We all like different things on our taco. So a stuffed pepper, you might like different things in your stuffed pepper. So I'm gonna show you how I'm mixing it up, and then feel free to adjust to meet your needs. So we've got our ground meat in here, and then I'm gonna take some beans, and I'm gonna start with and these are all cooked. I've got black beans and red beans that I've cooked in the Instant Pot. They're cooled down already. So that was 1 cup. I'm gonna do 2 cups. 2 cups of cooked beans, and it can be any kind of bean that you want. Okay. Okay, 2 cups. And that looks, it's almost like a chili with more meat in it. Then I'm gonna take, and you don't have to add this since you've got the stuffed peppers, but I had the caps off of the other peppers that I chopped up, and so I'm gonna add a handful or 2 of just chopped peppers. I'm going to add 1 large jalapeno that's been chopped up finely. If you don't like hot peppers, you don't have to add it. This is going to make a whole lot, so that 1 pepper isn't going to be too overwhelming. This is going to make a lot of stuffed peppers. So then I'm going to take some frozen corn. You can use fresh corn, you can use canned corn. This was some we had in our garden, and this is about 2 cups. Put that in there. If you're using canned corn, drain it. And so far, that's what we have. Then I'm going to add, like I said, we've already got an onion that's been cooked with the meat, but I'm gonna add another big handful of finely chopped onions, maybe 2 handfuls, just to add a little more onion taste. These are Mexican style stuffed peppers. Then I'm gonna add 2 eggs, and this is going to be a binder. Now, if you have the rice, that rice kind of acts like a binder, but I'm gonna add 2 eggs, and then I've taken several pieces of homemade bread, and I've just finely ground them up. And this is kind of like a filler and a binder, so I'm going to add this. You don't have to, but this is gonna help it stick together. And then I have, let's see how much this is. We will measure it. I have about 1.5 cups of tomatoes chopped with their juice. Now, if you wanted to, you could use salsa. If you don't have fresh tomatoes, just use a can of salsa. Choose if you want it to be mild or spicy. But that's going to give the liquid that we need for that bread and the egg, so that it's going to help bind it and stick it together. We have another ingredient that's going to help bind it together, and that is cheese, and you can use whatever kind of cheese you want. I'm just using a cheddar. It's just what I happen to have, and this is probably 3 cups, so I'm just going to start with a couple of handfuls. And this bowl is going to be full. And while I'm working that cheese in, I've also got some frozen cilantro, and this was actually if you watched how I preserve my cilantro video, I can link it somewhere up here. This is 2 of the cubes from the ice cube tray, and I've just kind of thawed them. They're a little bit frosty still, but it keeps it nice and fresh. I find that if I dry my cilantro, it loses its taste, so I like to freeze it. So a little of that, and if you don't like cilantro, you don't have to add it, or you could substitute parsley. Fresh parsley is really good too. So we're gonna add that. And then we're gonna add some of our seasonings, taco seasoning. Let's add, this is a lot. So let's see, 1, I'm gonna do 2, and then I'm gonna mix it up, and then I think I'm gonna add 2 more. Now that's my homemade taco seasoning, and it doesn't have a lot of salt because I like to salt my meat and stuff to my taste. If you're using a packaged taco seasoning, it might be saltier, So you might want to be careful with how much you use. So I'm gonna throw in 2 more. So that's 4 tablespoons for this amount. I'm also gonna add some extra garlic. I could have added some fresh chopped garlic, but I was just too lazy to chop it right now. I'm trying to get all this done. So I'm just gonna add a big tablespoon of garlic powder. Not garlic salt, garlic powder. Or granulated, you could use granulated too. Okay, this is coming together very nicely. And I'm gonna add some more cheese now. I was just holding off on the cheese to make sure I got the seasonings mixed in well, because when I add that cheese, this bowl is going to be full. This looks really yummy. And it smells really good. You can smell the cilantro in there. You could add a splash of lemon juice or a splash of lime juice if you wanted to. I think I'm just gonna finish her off there. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we are going to stuff the peppers with this, and then we are going to be freezing them like we did the other ones. If you wanted to eat them right away, that is perfectly fine. To cook these, you'd set your oven to about 350 degrees. You either put a little bit of water at the bottom of your pan, or you can put salsa or any kind of Mexican sauce. I'm thinking like when I do, if you look back at my videos that I've done recently, the things that I've canned with our tomatoes, I think just about any of those sauces would taste good at the bottom of the pan to set your peppers in. I also like to put a little drizzle on top with a sauce. If you want, you don't have to. Then you're gonna put aluminum foil over that and bake them until heated completely through. It might take 30 minutes or more depending on the size of your pepper. At the end of the cook time, I usually take it out and sprinkle with cheese and then put it back in without being covered to let the cheese melt. And then you have a wonderful stuffed pepper to eat for dinner. So I'm ready to stuff. And when I was cutting these peppers, I decided to cut them sideways. So they're cut in half, just like that. Okay, so I'll get plenty of stuffing, and I might even mound it up a little bit because we have so much here. And let me see, I'm gonna grab, oh, I guess I'll just use this. So we're gonna take our stuffing mix. We're gonna make sure we get it into all the creases and crevices of these peppers. Some of them have kind of odd shapes. Again, you don't want to pack it too hard, but just make sure it's in there. And if you would like to have it mounded a little bit, you can. So something like that. I'm just putting it in a big, I guess this is a roaster with some parchment paper because I'll be freezing them this way. I think I will keep a couple of these out and cook these tonight too, just like I did. I've decided I'm going to do 2 of Grandma Borgmeyer's peppers, and then 2 or 3 of these stuffed peppers, maybe 3 or 4 of these because they're halved, and then we'll just have a choice as to which ones we want to eat, and we can try all of them. So there's one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stuff all of these peppers and then put them in the freezer so they will be flash frozen. Once they're frozen solid, probably tomorrow, I will take them out and I will put them in a bag, probably a food saver bag, and take the air out and freeze them that way. You can also, and I'll probably put them in quantities of 2 because it's just my husband and I normally, and if it's the boys are home, I could take out 2 or 3 packages, whatever we need. If you don't have the food saver, you can just put them in Ziploc bags or any other freezer type bag that you have. That is also fine. They will last frozen for several months. So I'm just gonna go ahead and stuff the rest of these, and then when I come back, we'll be doing our last stuffed pepper, and that is the bacon wrapped jalapeno poppers and the faux bacon wrapped jalapeno poppers. So stick around if you want to see that recipe. All right, we are down to our final stuffed pepper for the day, and this one is our bacon wrapped jalapeno poppers. And so we are going to make the filling first. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm making a larger batch because again, we're freezing these. I've got 2 8-ounce blocks of cream cheese, and I've left it out so it's at nice room temperature and it's nice and soft. If you don't leave it out, it's going to be a real booger to mix. So be sure you get it at room temperature. And I'm just creaming it together a little bit. Then we're going to add, I'm going to add just a little bit of garlic powder, probably to 2 of these. Two blocks will probably take, a teaspoon. Mix that in. You could add onion powder if you want. You could add some paprika if you want, but I'm gonna keep it pretty simple. All right, so once that's mixed in, then we're gonna mix in some cheese, and I'm gonna add probably about 1.5 to 2 cups per block. So this would take 3 to 4 cups of cheese. Again, it's not a science. I'm doing some cheddar and I'm also doing some mozzarella. Got the mozzarella at the bottom. So I'm gonna mix this and just see what the consistency is. You know, you're gonna see recipes all over that tell you different amounts of cheese per amounts of cream cheese. Some of them don't even have cheese in it, just the cream cheese. So it's just basically your taste. Now I've got all of my peppers all halved, and I went ahead and cut off the stems. You don't have to. You can just seed them and take out the membranes inside of the pepper and leave your stem on, but it's easier just to cut it off and just cut it in half and then cut off the stem and then clean it out. So I just did that. But if you want the stem on, they're kind of cool looking that way. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get all the cream cheese and the cheese mixed evenly. And you could use a mixer. A mixer would work real well with this. Just use your paddle. And this right here is the same way you make a cheese ball, so you could put a little of this on a cracker and eat it right now if you want. And any cheese is great if you want to use a Colby or a Mexican blend or a jalapeno or green pepper cheese. Those are all great. Monterey Jack. Any of those are great. Whatever you have on hand. This is just what I had on hand today. I've just about got it. I've got a couple white spots still that I'm gonna get that cream cheese mixed with some cheese. And that's what it looks like. Okay. Now I'm gonna get some gloves. When I chopped my jalapeno, I did put on gloves because the jalapenos are hot. Ours are hot ones. I tried tasting them once the membranes and the seeds were out, and they're still very hot. And just be careful. Some jalapenos are mild, and if you have a mild jalapeno, that would be great too. So we're going to do the regular stuffed ones. I'm going to do a couple of those first, and then I'll show you how I do the faux ones. So just take your jalapeno half that's all cleaned out, and just take a little bit of your filling and lay it in there and get it nice and flat. It'll bubble out quite a bit if you have it mounded. So just flatten it off there, pack it in there. And then you're gonna take a half of a piece of bacon, and I accidentally grabbed the thick cut. The thin cut actually works better, but this will be fine. And I just take it, and depending on the length, you could either wrap it, this one will wrap like that, or just get it one time over. And I just put the seams or the ends down, and I put it on a parchment lined cookie sheet because I'm going to be freezing these. It's also, if you're going to be eating them right away, sometimes freezing them helps to keep the filling from oozing out too much. It's still a little frozen, so while the pepper's warming up, it won't get too hot right away. You can kind of stretch your bacon like so, and you could use toothpicks. I don't like to, because when you freeze them, I don't want them to pierce the bag. What I'll do is I'll lay these on the cookie sheet, put them in to do a flash freeze. Tomorrow I'll take them out and put them in food saver bags and take out the air and freeze them like that. I'll put in the quantity that we usually would eat with 1 meal. When you go to cook these, turn your oven to about 400 degrees and just don't thaw them out. Just stick them in the oven after it's preheated and get the bacon cooked to the texture that you like, crispy. And then when that's done, just take them out and they are ready. Like I said, if they're frozen, if you're cooking them now, freezing them a little bit will help to hold some of that filling in. When you do cut them, where you cut the end off, you do have more leakage because they'll tend to ooze out on that side, but it's okay. We're fine with that. Okay, so I'm going to do one more. Super simple, but oh, they're good. If we have milder peppers, I don't mind the milder jalapenos, but these are going to be quite hot, I can tell. And so I don't know that I could eat but nibble on one. I like the taste, but just the heat just gets to me. So that is why we're gonna do a faux jalapeno popper. So I just took some of my smaller, we have miniature bell peppers, and we also have a pepper called a chili pie pepper that doesn't seem to have much heat this year. It's pretty sweet pepper, and it's a real thick fleshed pepper. And so what I'm going to do is I just cut them in half, and I stemmed them. Again, you could have left the stems on, and I'm going to fill them just like this. And because I still like a little bit of the heat, it's just that I don't like the whole pepper to be that, I'm going to take some chopped jalapenos and just put a few on the top and press them in. So I'll still have that flavor, but it won't be so hot that it's hard to eat. And then I'll take my bacon and I will again wrap it, and since these are not long, they're smaller, you can just kind of actually get it all covered like that. Maybe we can call those just little faux bombs, faux filled pepper bombs. And this one looks like it is one of the chili pies. Again, push that down. Now, if you wanted to, if you don't like any heat at all, you don't even have to add the jalapeno. You could just wrap it in bacon. That would be fine. But I do like, and I think most of the people that eat them, that we have eating them with us, like a little bit. And so we'll just put a little bit and then wrap it again with the bacon. And there we have it. So I'm going to go ahead and get all of these made and stuffed, and then I will flash freeze them, and I think we'll probably eat a few tonight with our other stuffed peppers and see how we like them. These are easy to also pop on the grill. You can cook them on the grill, and if you have an air fryer, and that's nice in the summertime when you don't want to heat up your house, stick them in an air fryer and cook them the same way you would in an oven. So today what we made was we made Grandma Borgmeyer's stuffed peppers. We made Mexican stuffed peppers. And lastly, we made the bacon wrapped jalapeno poppers and the faux bacon wrapped jalapeno poppers. If you like what you're seeing on my videos, please subscribe. I would really appreciate that. Also, don't forget to like and share. And if you have a question, leave a comment. Well, have a great week, and I hope to see you back here soon. Bye-bye.